dltledgers offers its customers a multi-party collaboration platform, which is Proteus. We generally don't get involved in a single party kind of use cases, which we believe there are enough softwares out there which can cater to the requirements of the customer. Now, our load of customers are in manufacturing, banking, logistics, and commodity. To these customers, the most unique value proposition which we have delivered, or the USP, in all these projects or all these customers which we have worked with, they have ultimately derived the true value out of their collaboration with external parties, whether it is vendors, customers, banks, shippers, logistics companies, or the goods flow which takes different path in the terms of these companies. We differentiate ourselves by being a multi-party kind of a framework rather than a single party kind of a framework. So if there is a single party framework, it's best to deploy that in SAP or Oracle or Microsoft or any of the ERPs which you have. But when these documents, these frames, these processes leave the shore of the organization, but still the organization needs to track it, whether it is a compliance, whether it's a reconciliation, whether it is importing, whether it is exporting, whether it's procurement, whether it is a reverse logistics where there's a return coming over, there is certifications which comes across, which we work with external organizations. And there's quite a number of these scenarios in every business function within an organization. If you take sales, how do you deal with the distributors? If you take procurement on how do you deal with your vendors? Even on sustainability line, how do you export? How do you import in there? If you look at shared services, you have multiple parties coming together, in collaborating and coordinating on a transaction. Whether you are procurement or your central procurement, or your AR services or your AP services, and your quality, which comes as a part of your manufacturing. So you can imagine there is quite a number of activities where you interact with your external parties. Actually, Proteus is the solution or the software which could jumpstart this and resolve the efficiency issues and the cost issues when it comes into it. Now today, you may be using physical documents, or you have a lot of email communication. In certain cases, we have heard customers talking about 300 odd communications for the shipment of one PO, which starts from the PO process all the way to the goods and also to the financing of that particular transaction. So Proteus comes in to help in all these multi-party kind of transactions, which when it leaves the shore of an organization, leaves the shore of an ERP, which is internal to an organization, leaves the shore of a CRM or a planning environment or a forecasting environment, when it leaves and it needs external collaboration, that's where we come into play. So in many of these use cases around all the business functions which exist within or externally, and how it collaborates with the external world is what we deal with. So there are multiple functions on how you can create these business partners, or maybe you can interface to these business partners which exist within the organization, how you interact with the users of these business partners. Like, for example, I wanted to talk to somebody in maybe another organization, and I can talk through emails, through contracts, through documents, and through a structured or maybe an unstructured process, maybe through a phone call. How many of these processes are actually audited, actually within the compliance of an organization? If there is a contract committed by an employee to an external party via an email, or a contract change is communicated, is it actually recorded? Is that email legally going to be questionable at one point of time? Is it acceptable between the organizations? Is it the right way in which they need to build efficiency between their collaborative communication? So in Proteus, we bring all these collaborative frameworks together. We can run the documents, we can run the contract, we can run the communication, we can run the to and fro activities, we can run the amendment process, we can track the goods, we can track the provenance of those goods, we can report on sustainability, we can interact and build extremely new set of documents which could play between these organizations, enhancing the capability of these organizations to work together. And in most of the cases, recently there was a Gartner article on it. It talks about around 30 to 40% of efficiency process in digitalization relies on external parties rather than internal parties. I know we are working hard to make internal processes or internal workflows much more prudent or much more efficient, without extending our arms to the external process. We'll be able to tie up to an internal process and an external process the way you wanted to configure it. So our workflows are configurable, our rules are configurable, what we exchange is configurable, what goes into what I don't want to share and what I wanted to share is in blockchain or in off-chain, and how we use ML for our CDA, which is cognitive document automation, bringing together brilliance in terms of machine learning working with blockchain and interoperable. We are tightly integrated to SAPs and Microsoft's of systems which exist within the organization, so that the connecting the dots activity and all the communications which happens within the enterprise. So we differentiate ourselves from the large enterprise softwares by stating that we operate and work in multi-party alone. And when multi-party frameworks come up, we interface and interact with internal ERPs and internal enterprise systems, and we collaborate between the users of these internal and external enterprises to bring together an ecosystem which makes sure that your processes are efficient. Your cost is minimized in terms of that transaction. You can bring frameworks and net new business models, net new ideas, which you could generate out of these processes. Now this, we can look at, a large corporate working with a bank, on supply chain traceability, supply chain visibility given across to a bank, and bank can produce or give more financing or go deep tier in terms of, the corporation. The corporation working with another corporation. A manufacturing floor buying raw material importing from Africa, for example. I want to import cocoa from Africa, and I want to utilize that cocoa for manufacturing biscuits for me. When you procure cocoa, there is an import digitalization process where you work with tons of external vendors and bring cocoa into your 300 odd factories or 400 odd factories around the world. You could talk of exporting that. Exporting sustainable exports, which goes from a particular country, is respected in other parts of the world. And how do you make sure your exports are sustainable? How do you report on your sustainability framework? How do you bring together an audit framework with auditing companies so that your sustainable reported values have good backend data to support that? Again, it is not a business function of an enterprise framework, because we need at source information from where the farmer has come in, the mill has come in, and then our manufacturing flows have come in, and we have manufactured something, and then it goes into shipment processes and rest of the process to reach our target customer. So you can imagine, in all business functions which we discussed about, Proteus has a number of use cases which our customers are utilizing us for. And we'll be very happy to come and help you guys in terms of defining this using our 40-minute framework, our 3-hour workshop deep dive, and you'll be able to get a complete picture on how you can configure this within the framework and utilize that as a part of the process. And you will be able to get your hands dirty and come in and start activating your multi-party transactions, multi-party use cases, multi-party problem statements within Proteus. So we distinguish ourselves with multi-party, with real-time communication, with strong collaboration, taking out emails and other frameworks, and we operate in blockchain, and we have blockchain and off-chain. We don't, we put it in inverted commas in terms of blockchain and off-chain, because whatever you need to be kept within your organization is actually in off-chain. And when you interact, with external organization, it goes into blockchain, so that there is authenticity, there is complete, transparency, and in terms of, certifying between you and me in terms of what we have agreed with respect to a contract or a document. I hope you got a picture of how we differentiate with the enterprise softwares and what we are not and what we are, for a manufacturing company or a large corporate or a large logistics company or a bank, and how we help them in terms of these multi-party processes.